Hammer Bullets produces what we at the Northern Hunter consider to be the most premium and best working monolithic bullets on the market today. These bullets are easy to load, extremely accurate, and best of all, they're always in stock and ready to ship. The guys at Hammer designed them so that after penetrating the hide of an animal, it sheds its petals, initiating a massive energy dump while retaining the rear shank for maximum penetration. These bullets are built with 100% focus on how they perform on game, and their proprietary designs produce great BCs with specialized pressure grooves for amazing inherent accuracy and speed. They have a minimum expansion velocity of 1,800 feet per second, which allows for long-range shots, but with no maximum velocity, making them perfect for every cartridge from your granddaddy's old 30-30 to the high-velocity round like the Weatherby 30-378 without having to worry about your bullet failing. To view their expansive selection and find the perfect match for your hunting needs, go to hammerbullets.com and use discount code TheNorthernHunter to drop the hammer on your next adventure. You're listening to the Northern Hunter Podcast, home of all things hunting, fishing, and outdoors in Alaska. All right, everybody, welcome back to the show. My name is James Payne, and Chris is my co-host for this episode here. And we are recording in, I guess you could call this the new studio, but it's like the in-between studio. So the new one is about, what would you say, half constructed at this point?
It's mostly constructed.
Yeah.
It needs some finishing touches.
It's standing.
We don't quite have time for at the moment.
Right. So Chris and I are in the process of building a new studio for the show. It's gonna be wonderful. It's gonna be great. But temporarily, we are set up in my shop at the moment. So I don't know. Maybe you can hear the fire crackling in the background. Who knows? But it's I like the what do you call that? Ambiance.
This is a good vibe.
Yeah, good vibe. That's the word I was looking for. You got the fire going. It's warm. Look through the window, see the trees.
I'm just coming in here from work.
Yeah.
And I just dumped a 5-gallon bucket of water on me. I was mixing some self-leveler. So this fire is doing me pretty good right now.
You can move that microphone. Scoot a little closer to the fire, man. But yeah, so we're excited for that. If it sounds a little different, I'll do my best to make sure it doesn't, but that's why. New environment. Everybody that is an avid listener will realize we missed an episode last week and put out a post on the Instas about why. Chris and I ended up out in the field for an extended period of time, where we basically weren't able to dedicate time to the studio by the time we got back into town. It was like Saturday night late, and it had so much other stuff going on. It just wasn't going to happen. So made the unfortunate decision to have to miss a week, but we're going to tell you why today. That's part of today's episode. So it'll be a fun one, kinda. It was a strange adventure. I'll say that.
There's good lessons.
Very strange adventure.
Good lessons and everything.
Yeah, but before we get into that, I mean, this is moose season is wrapped up by the time this one comes out. I think this one actually comes out on the last day of bow season for the local area. So hopefully everybody got their meat in the freezer that did. I know I've heard a lot of reports of people getting moose this season. First time moose, our good friend Sean. British Sean, he got a tanker, dude.
I actually saw that earlier. That's freaking awesome moose.
Yep. So congrats to him. He got to go out there with his kid and have that experience and that adventure. So that's awesome.
Right on, Sean.
And then just everybody else out there that had a successful moose season. Man, congratulations to you. It was from everything I've heard, it was a good season. It was cool this year. It was nice and cool. I heard they were moving around pretty quick. So, and then, let's see, anything else I have before we get into this story? I don't think so. You got anything else before we jump into this story? Anything you've been up to you want to tell the folks about?
Not really. I mean, I just been catching up on home projects.
Yeah.
Went out and did some couple sets with Carson. We did some beaver sets.
Nice. That dude's been killing it.
Dude, it's funny because as we're recording here, I keep getting these text messages here with like just these awesome video clips of him just rocking out.
Yes, sir.
He just got a fatty here, so
So congrats to you too, Carson.
good job, Carson. Thanks for keeping us clued in,
Carson
man.
happy.
Yeah, dude. I love that guy. He's just always smiles, man.
Yeah. Oh, great guy.
He called me the other day right in the middle. I was like, I don't know what I was doing. I think I was on a lap to get some supplies, and he's like, what are you doing? You want to go do some sets with me? And I'm like, yeah, I'm like, I shouldn't, and it was cool. We went and threw some sets out, and the weather was beautiful, you know.
Mm-hmm. It's been nice the last couple of days.
It's doing that thing it does. I always forget where it's kind of like, it's the warmest point of the day is like, almost like right now,
right?
Evening time.
Yeah.
And so it was awesome. And then of course we got going about like predator hunting and everything else under the sun. So it kind of got me away from my tasks.
It's amazing how easy that can be sometimes. It's about time to start talking about that too. That's coming up. So we got 1 month till opener, man. Pretty much, a little over 1 month and a day.
Yeah, I'm always like trick-or-treating with my kid, like just thinking about, I'm like, man, we're right there.
Mm-hmm.
We are right there.
Yup. Make sure you got your warm clothing. Make sure you got your snow camo. Whatever gun you're going to try and, poke holes in fur without poking too big of a hole, which you're going to. So.
I can't remember if it was you or Carson. It was, there's knockdown. There's good knockdown bullets. I can't remember how you put. Did you tell me that the other day? I was like, I'm going to quote you. I think you might have said it, or it might have been Carson. I can't remember, but something to the effect of, you got bullets that anchor animals, and you have bullets that are fur friendly, but you don't have both or something.
Oh,
I don't know. But I was like, yeah, that's a good one.
I don't remember having that conversation with you recently, but that sounds like something I'd say about the situation.
Maybe Carlito said it to me. Yeah. I can't remember.
Well, and I was kind of explaining. We've actually gotten quite a few questions about that into the Instagram and the emails and stuff, and everybody's gearing up and prepping up and everything. And of course, predator caliber is one of the biggest things that people are amped about when it's going into the snowy season, right? So. Yeah, and that's pretty much the answer I give everybody is like, you're gonna damage fur. You're gonna, there is no one perfect caliber. Something that won't damage a fox is, probably too small for a wolf unless you get that perfect shot placement. Something that's perfectly viable for a wolf is gonna decimate a fox. So it's just, you gotta go prepared and just, I know a lot of guys run 2-gun arsenals. A lot of guys run FMJs and stuff like that. So
me and Carson, we've been talking, we've been covering this I feel like we've talked about this for the last 3 days straight, because he
said he's wanting to get back more into the predator hunting.
Oh, he's like,
schedule.
Oh, dude, he's so pumped on it. I mean, and it's cool too, because it's a good opportunity for me to talk predator hunting with somebody that's pumped on it. And he shoots long range, right?
Mm-hmm.
So all that, and it's not all that stuff's necessarily cross references very well too.
Yep.
For preservation.
Exactly.
And it works great. I mean, you got to be able to hit them, but you got to be able to save them too. And it's fun. I think that's kind of part of the fun of that whole thing.
Learn to sew.
I've never found the perfect round.
Yeah.
I have learned to sew though.
Yeah. Learn to sew. It's a valuable thing. And then we got, so the rest of fall beaver, as far as shooting them and stuff like that goes. So we might try to get out and get some footage for the folks.
It's a pretty short window too.
It is.
Because I mean, you just start, if you're out on the boat or whatever, what were we, mid-20s this morning?
Mm-hmm.
So
it's going to start getting icy out there.
It's going to be kind of one of those things like it is every year. You're just kind of sitting on the ramp waiting for things to be warm enough that you're not getting slush in the jet.
Yep.
Have things freezing.
Hope it doesn't start freezing around you while you're out there. Yeah. But no, I hope we get out for a trip before that happens.
Yeah, it'd be cool to do a little burbot, little beaver.
Oh yeah,
trip. I was talking to him about that today. Maybe we'll put it together here.
Mm-hmm.
If we can all find the time.
Yeah. We'll make the time. That's important enough. We'll make the time. Hopefully.
Yeah, you guys pick a spot, I'll captain.
Yeah, buddy. Oh, man. But, yep. So, yeah, fall is wrapping up. We're almost into winter. So, this is, it sucks. We're going to have to start putting more clothes on. But that's just the name of the game when you live in Alaska. This is when we pay our rent. So, but
I had a guy ask me at the gas station today. He's like, how you doing? I'm like, oh, man, just loving the restrictive clothing and short daylight. And he just looked at me so weird.
It's the kind of mentality you need to
You
live
just
here,
kind of
man.
like, is this guy like, really? Just love the restrictive clothing.
It's what I live for. I wouldn't survive in Florida.
No, they wouldn't have me there. Too weird now.
For a multitude of reasons, but that's one of them. Yeah.
Not fit for anywhere else.
Oh, man, I'm not either. I've tried, but... All right, so that pretty much wraps up all things current. But so... Let's see. I'm not going to take a break before this story. So Chris and I... Actually, you know what? I don't even know if I'm going to take a break this whole episode. We just might roll this one through. So yeah, Chris and I ended up going out on a bit of an adventure, last minute, completely unexpected, and that was a big part of what it was a big part of the frustration and a big part of the just the whole depth of the whole thing was a lot of let's just say we didn't know what we were getting ourselves into.
A lot of unforeseen.
A lot of unforeseens, a lot of gratefulness for over preparedness. I'll say that. So it's essentially what happened. We have some friends that were out on a moose hunt, and they had this whole plan, and they were going to go out and put in here and take out there, and had this whole plan put together, and they went out and they had a great trip. They were, successful. They got a moose and got the meat taken care of, got it all processed and, transporting it through the wilderness to where they thought they were going to be able to take out at. And well, lo and behold, they were not really able to take out there easily. And on a better water year, you would absolutely be able to. Where these guys were trying to come out, there was exit point that was requiring to get up a slough that was majority dried up this year. Mm-hmm. And not dry enough that it was comfortable walking, but dry enough that it would have been easily, what do you think, Chris? 3 times the amount of portaging to floating.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, and it was just grown up and thick and nasty.
Well, and then there was a lot of beaver activity in there, which contributed to a lack of water in certain portions of that area.
Yeah.
And we kind of did that recon coming in where you could really see where it kind of like segmented. It almost dropped levels. Mm-hmm. Whereas the intel we had gotten, it was flatter in the past. It was a flat waterway. And it definitely was not that.
No. No, there were shelves.
Yeah,
where the levels were rising and dropping. And
I think some of the stuff we saw, there could have been spots where you had like 3-foot waterfalls essentially.
Yeah.
Where easily. You had blockage from beavers jamming stuff up. And that'll happen too. I mean, they can change the puth of flow pretty quickly.
Yeah. Well, and that's what the problem they're having with the beavers that were pushing up north.
Yeah.
Further up into the northern country of Alaska where they typically weren't before, is they started redirecting rivers and doing all this destructive, stuff to the habitat. And I think I watched like a 2-hour Fish and Game like presentation about it. They were talking about the issues with the beavers moving up north and all the mayhem it was causing for different waterways and such. And that's kind of why they started loosening up a few of the regulations and whatnot. And that was years ago, but still, I mean, it's something where I would say lesson number 1 from this entire trip is terrain changes in Alaska and rapidly. You can scout something the year before and come back the year after and it might look completely different as far as waterways go.
Yep.
Now if you're going across a tussock field, then, I mean, it's probably still going to be a tussock field next year. But, the wild plants here grow very quickly as well. So they have a very short window to grow, and they sprout up like crazy during that window. So it's going to be thicker the year after. Water might not be where it was the year before. Depending on the feed of whatever water source you're using, whether it's glacier fed or just snow runoff or mountain, anything, whatever's feeding that river. It might be raining a ton in town, and it might not be raining a ton in that valley you're in.
Mm-hmm.
And that water could be super low compared to what you were expecting to deal with. These are all things we're pitting ourselves against when we go out in the wilderness. It's all these unexpected conditions that you're going to have to be prepared for, and you got to alter your plan accordingly as you encounter these issues.
And this is something where we always kind of talk about this, but and I'm a big stickler on this, and it can be my opinion, it can be a very unpopular opinion, but it's fun to recon, and it's fun to plan, and it's fun to, this is what we're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes those maps don't update in real time.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes there's things look good when you're e-scouting and you're doing all this stuff, but boots on the ground is what's telling.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I'm sure we're going to get to it, but I think when you're doing your e-scouting and stuff like that and things look really good, I think it's a good thing to look and go, hey, what if this isn't like this when we're there? What's our next plan of attack?
Exactly.
And
having a plan A, B, C, D, E, F.
And once you come up with that, having another plan to what if that doesn't appear to be
right
what it looks like here.
Yep.
And I mean, I've mentioned this in the past. Carl and I have done some e-scouting. I kind of fought with him one year on this, and we were looking at a place we wanted bear bait, and we looked, and it was all flat terrain.
Mm-hmm.
And it basically what we'd come up with, and we kind of knew the area and some people that lived in the area, is that it had been hit by wildfire at one point, and the trees were low. And we're like, well, we're going to have to really cover some river miles to get into some terrain here that's going to be worthy of bear hunting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we get in there and we go a couple miles, and there's these giant trees everywhere because all this stuff had like rejuvenated, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and grown again. And it wasn't super thick growth, but it wasn't like optimal, but it was enough to go in there and put a plan together.
Right.
And we didn't see that on the map. So it basically looked like moonscaped when we looked at it on Google Earth and stuff.
Yep. I've experienced that exact thing trying to find bait spots.
And you couldn't even move in there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and it was low, but the vegetation was thick enough that it was perfect for what we were trying to do.
Sure.
And there was a couple trees where you could set some tree stands.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, we could have looked at that from where we launched and been like, yeah, this isn't going to be any good. But then we went a couple bends up.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I've walked through. One of my first bear baits actually was in an area where when I was looking at it on Onyx, I thought I was walking into a clear cut,
mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, I'm just going to cut across this cut here. And it's there's no trees, there's no anything. It looks completely barren. And it was mature timber in there. I mean, they were not small trees. Whenever that picture was taken in that particular area, I don't know how long it's been since it was updated, but it was not the way it appeared. So that's 100% to your point. And even in this exact location, when we got the coordinates and we started kind of e-scouting a plan of like, okay, what's our plan of attack for tackling this? It was effectively pointless. Nothing. We got zero valuable information from it.
Not a lot of
other than maybe some of the thicker areas and maybe some of the traditionally more narrow parts of the slough.
Yep.
But even that changes every year. So that's
what's interesting too is we were able to find a trail that was covered by overgrowth from satellite imagery.
Yep.
And then once we kind of got into that canopy, we were able to establish actually a pretty clear-cut paths for the most part.
Yeah,
for some of it. But
we nicknamed it the trap line. So
I wasn't there for that.
So, but yeah, to circle back to the beginning here. So our friends were out on this hunt, and things became clear that Plan A was not going to happen. Right, Plan A was out of the picture, and Plan B was just to hoof it, just hike this stuff out. And you know what? We can't float. We can't power our way through it. We're just gonna pick it up and carry it. Well, the problem that they ran into was they weren't able to find a good path to where they were planning to exit at. Whether they were hitting alder thickets or chest deep slough crossings or tussock fields, which there was a lot of.
With standing water
in between. I mean, I have a picture. I'll probably post on the Instagram. I have a picture of me standing in front of a tussock where we were hauling this moose in. And I mean, that thing is literally like halfway up my thigh.
Mm-hmm.
That's how deep these things were.
Mm-hmm.
And you're just trying to balance on top of them and praying it doesn't break. And like, you know, because some of them you literally can't step in between each and every one.
Oh, yeah.
It's just not realistic when you've got a quarter on your back.
Some of that stuff was hard. I mean, a lot of that stuff was hard to traverse without a load without carrying a load.
Yeah.
I mean, just empty.
Yep. And so these guys, they realized they were in trouble. They started reaching out for help. And, help during hunting season is kind of hard to come by, honestly. All your commercial services are taken up. They're all scheduled out. It's very unlikely you'll find like a cub pilot that's not actively working during the season. Any transporter that you're using is going to be busy because you're not his only client. And so what they decided to do was basically put out a message to whoever they thought would answer. And fortunately, they reached somebody who would. That was me. And they, kind of explained the situation to me as best they could. Little frazzled, kind of some broken communication, not all the details, which, is understandable for these guys. But that was Monday morning. And I reached out to you pretty much immediately. And I told him, I was like, I will do everything I can. If I can get another guy in the time off work, I will absolutely be there. If I can't do it, I'll find someone who will. And so reached out to you without even a second thought. You're like, well, you did say, let me check with my wife, which, obviously is the smart answer there.
Don't forget, don't leave that out.
No, that's the smart answer.
She probably won't listen to this, but, make sure we cross our T's and dot our I's.
Exactly. But, you said, as long as, same thing as me, as long as the boss says, okay, I'm good to go.
I didn't get a real charismatic approval.
Right. And so by the end of the day, we had both figured out, okay, I've got the time off work. You've got your approvals and scheduling. And so called the guy back and said, hey, yep, we can help. Like, we're packing our stuff. We'll be there first thing in the morning to get to you. And proceeded to do that, which kind of brings me to point number 2 lesson of this trip, which is the importance of having your gear organized. And having the right gear for whatever trips you might have to encounter. I will say this. Now, I might be able to have an excuse here. I am in the middle of moving. So all of my stuff is not in an area where it should be because I'm still figuring out where it should be. But man, when I only had one night to plan and gather all the gear, and I had no idea if I'm staying there 1 night, 2 nights, 4 nights, and
it was 1 night initially.
Originally, it was supposed to be 1 night. But of course, we never go into the woods without preparation for the worst case scenario, right? Because you don't want to be going in there to help somebody and then be the next one needing to call for help. So I grabbed whatever I thought I would need for the time that I was going to be out there. They had a tent there, so we didn't worry about bringing a tent or anything like that, and had a wood stove. But sleeping bag, pack frame, making sure you've got your firearms lined out, making sure you've got all your clothing layers that you're going to need. trying to anticipate what conditions you're going to end up being in. Do I need chest waders? Do I need hip waders? Do I need, just trying to look at the terrain? And that is one area where like looking at maps can kind of help you figure it out, because you can get a general idea of what the area is. Is it lower land swamp? Is it, higher mountains? Is it rocky? Is it thick? Some of that you can get a general idea from
You can
maps.
study elevation changes. That can be beneficial too. If
Right.
you got some subtle elevation changes and
Yep. And so you and I, we got our gear together, water filters, everything we'd need for camping, and headed out first thing in the morning. And it was a long trip to another long trip to another long trip, and we're not going to go into any detail on that, but at the end of the day, we ended up in camp with these gentlemen, and we'll just skip all those in between details. It was really just traveling. And I guess we could probably throw in the detail that we were flying. So, we had to fly to the area that we were getting to them at. That's not a detail that's going to throw anything in.
that could be anywhere.
That could be anywhere. Yep. So, so we took a flight, got to these gentlemen, and it kind of became even more clear how much the communication gap was, because it's so nice. We roll up, and he's got this entire area cleaned out for us. Oh yeah, guys, set up anywhere you want. Well, we're camping with you, buddy. And
put your tent wherever you want. I cleared a spot up for you guys. We don't have a tent.
Yeah,
we were told we didn't need one.
Yep. So that was step one of the tomfoolery.
2-man tent with a stove in it. 3 guys.
Yep. So stove came out. There was no keeping the stove in there. Center pole got canted off center, and we made it work. But so then Chris and I proceeded, basically as soon as we could, to get everything settled out. We had no idea what we were walking into, though, right? So we had brought enough gear to survive in or outside of a tent, and we had made sure that we were ready to go pretty much no matter what. So on this first venture and out of camp, we brought, I'm not going to say anything and everything, but we brought enough puffy gear that if we got stuck on the other side of an area, then we couldn't make it back to camp. You can throw your puffies under your rain gear and stay warm as best you can. Maybe have some additional layers on top of that. Make sure you've got spare socks in case you get swamped. Make sure you've got stuff that you can survive in, because you're leaving the camp, which is in the middle of nowhere, to go further into the middle of nowhere. And at that point in time, we were fully aware that there was moose meat and other stuff that was still at the original point.
Yeah.
And these guys one of them had gotten very hurt. His knee was swollen like crazy. Completely blew his knee out trying to get through the terrain. I mean, this was tough terrain get through. It was not meant to be hiked. This was not an area where you were meant to hike out of.
Yeah, this wasn't a pack job. This was an emergency.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This was, everything had failed. We just got to get it out. So so Chris and I start trying to find our way across, and successfully traverse the area. And part of finding a trail through this kind of wilderness, I would say, is the willingness to just explore. Which these guys definitely did. And I commend them, because they showed me the trails that they had tried, the different directions they'd tried, and they covered some serious ground. But you really do have to put in miles sometimes, and just look for there's big animals in this area. It's hard to say what you're exactly looking for, because there's no one tip that fits every situation, right? But when you're stuck trying to cross a tussock field, there are going to be areas of slightly higher ground and slightly lower ground, where your tussocks are going to get deeper on the lower section, a little shallower on the higher section. that higher section might not last the entire stretch of the field, but you can at least use that to cross safer in some areas. So that is a huge thing to look for, is try to just follow that shallower tussock.
We kind of couldn't figure out where to put our feet either, because at some points we could walk across the top of them.
Right.
Other points we were trying to walk in between them and actually get to the bottom of them with each step.
Right.
And it would just was...
And that's one thing when you have no weight on you, but when you start coming out heavy, that gets real tiring real quick. When you're stepping over knee-high tussocks, I mean, hundreds of times.
That's not walking down an established trail or
no, that is, I mean, do the stair climber, before season starts and to prepare for that. But like the first time we crossed the slough, we ended up walking along the side of the slough, trying to find the best spot to cross. We were really trying to find a spot we could cross without wearing chest waders. Was the goal there, was if we can just wear the lacrosses or the extra toughs and just bomb in and bomb out, that'll be the best move. And I know you did get across once wearing your extra toughs.
I don't think we ever found that spot again.
No, we never went that far up again.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So I think we did on the way back, didn't we? Or no, you donned some chest waders to get back across.
Yeah, and I still went chest deep on one of those spots.
You did. So yeah, we got across the tussock field, the original one, which on the final path we ended up taking was like a 300-yard stretch. On the first path, the initial way you and I went in, it was more like, I don't know, 500 yards had to have been, because we were way out of the way.
Yeah.
When we finally found a spot you could cross in extra toughs, and thought that might be a good plan, but had to abandon that at some point on the way back. And then, like you said, we ended up finding that game trail. And that was one of the things that I felt we kind of knew we would find something like that, because just when you're in Alaska, there's big animals here. There's big bears, there's big moose. They got to travel too. And so, and especially the more remote you are, the bigger stuff is. And you're just going to find one of those trails, and hopefully it goes the direction you want it to.
Well, it looked like that game trail turned into like what used to be a trapping trail at one time too.
It almost seemed that way.
That definitely looked like human cleared.
Yeah.
But
because some areas, it was 4 foot wide.
Yeah.
Definitely wide enough for a machine or anything like that.
All the way down to the forest floor.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was somebody did that, I think.
And it was the nice part with that stretch was it was cleared wide enough. There were a few thin spots, but it was hard ground. So we were able to cover some pretty serious terrain there. But then we were going in a triangle, essentially. We weren't taking a beeline towards the moose. We were going zigzagging our way through, which is the downside when you're using an animals trail, is it's gonna go where the animals go. And there was some sections that followed the waterways, and there were some sections that peeled off, and we had to kind of work our way around that. Across another tussocks field, and then into some mature timber, which was out by where the downed moose was. And it was all cut up. It was all, taken care of. It was in game bags. So we weren't going to do that side of the things. But these guys, when they got hurt, they weren't able to make it back to the meet, and their rest of their gear and everything else. And so everything was essentially as it was when we showed up. And that was one area where I understand 100% what happened there. That guy, he wouldn't have been able to make it back, and but it is something to keep in mind when you're walking away from something like meat that is what's the word I'm looking for? Perishable.
Yeah.
Something that's perishable. And these guys did a good job of doing the best they could with what they had, of making sure it wasn't getting rained on or exposed to elements that would damage it as best they could. Unfortunately, when you're away from it for a while, there's only so much you can do, but tips, always hang it if you can. Always get it up in the air, get it breathing.
Get it covered.
Get it covered. Make sure it's not getting rained on. I mean, and we've talked about all of these points on the show before. We've beaten that horse to death. But you really, that is the most important aspect, because that's the point of killing an animal, right? Is to harvest that meat and bring it home. And so we got to this animal and we evaluated the situation, figured out, okay, we've got this much of camp gear, we've got this much of meat, we got this much of equipment, we've got this much of everything that we need to move, and started coming up with a game plan and put in more miles trying to figure out another way other than the way that we just came in. We investigated, 3 different sloughs, I think?
Yeah.
2 or 3 different sloughs, trying to figure out, okay, can we get up this side? Is this going to be easier?
Well, and we also kind of did a little recon on the initial plan those guys had their failed plan, because we wanted to put eyes on it and see if we couldn't maybe catch something they didn't catch, and we went in there and looked at that, and it was a bust.
Yeah, it was a total bust, and then
dry ground,
literally alder thickets. I mean, it was horrible. A lot of the stuff you couldn't have portaged through. It would have been a nightmare. And other areas where it was just not the way it was supposed to be according to the plan. So, and then we just proceeded to go to work, man. That's that's really all that happened. They had a little sled device there. It was the plastic had some eyelets in it where you could tie some 550 cord to,
thin piece of UHMW that had some contour to it.
Yep, and it worked about 60% of the time.
Would have been good for a coyote.
Yeah,
I don't know about moose quarters.
Moose quarters, no. So we hooked up a couple quarters to that and started to drag it out, and that's when we realized just what we were into. I remember when you and I got to the moose, we were feeling victorious. We actually thought we were doing great.
Well, we got through that. We got through all that, that hard pack trail that was pretty debris free, and we were gung ho, and we got there pretty quick.
We did. We found the trail pretty quickly. I mean, all things considered.
I mean, we were both 200 pounds lighter when we showed up.
Yep.
Than when we left.
And the other thing too is just being familiar with terrain like that. I mean, being here as long as both of us have, that's just we've had experience in terrain like that. So, it's you learn what to look for. You learn to just kind of recognize trails and stuff like that. But yeah, we got to the moose pretty quick. We felt victorious, and then instantly proceeded to get beaten down.
Yeah.
Equipment malfunctions, packs not working correctly. That the drag sled that we had was falling apart actively. And and that's just one thing with like tussocks, man. You're not just going to ride across the top of them, and that thing was falling in between every single one of them. So you're not just stepping over it now, but you're doing a deadlift, pulling the sled back up and over.
Lifting it out of holes.
Yep, lifting it out of holes.
On 3.
Yeah.
There's a lot of on 3.
Yeah, exactly. and then, trying to transfer meat from the sled to packs, and the packs not working correctly, and broken straps and everything. It was just I think we got to the moose that first. We got to camp like 1:30 in the afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
We were at the moose by 3, and we had to actually leave it, the 2 quarters that we were transporting back, on basically the opposite, the campsite of a slough.
Mm-hmm.
We got it across the slough, and then it made the decision we just had to abandon it there. And we did our proper due diligence. We made sure it was covered and it was taken care of correctly, but we were running out of daylight.
We were also a little worried about customers too in camp.
There is that fact of customers in camp. And so we ended up not even getting the 2 quarters all the way back to camp or anywhere near that area. We were still, near relatively, but 300 yards away.
I shot.
Yeah, I shot.
Yeah.
But it took us that long. I mean, that was an 8-hour round trip.
Yep.
For 2 quarters.
Yep.
And that was the moment we realized just how much trouble we were in. We realized we needed more manpower. We needed more equipment.
Yep.
We didn't have our packs and our familiar equipment.
We might want to get into why that was, because we were told that there was packs there already.
That's true.
And there was
That's true.
weight limitations and different things.
Yes.
And which I don't know that I would ever take that to heart again. I think that if I ever go into a recovery mission, I'm bringing my stuff.
I know.
That's the bottom line.
Yeah, I'm never leaving my pack again.
I'm not doing a recovery mission.
Right.
I'm not subjecting myself to that.
Well, and both of these packs were nice packs.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was a Cabela's, full frame pack, and
that's
that one,
a decent pack.
Once we got the strap fixed, it worked pretty decently. But not being familiar with it, it's not my piece of equipment.
Yep.
You don't know these things going into it. The other one, a very nice pack, but far too small for what we were trying to achieve, and just the size of the base. So,
and then I was swimming in the one I had.
Yeah, you were swimming.
It just didn't. I was out of adjustment,
and
that was actually a pretty high dollar pack.
Yep.
So one we're all
very
familiar with,
pack.
But set up for a guy with a little more, more meat on him. I was swimming in that thing.
Yeah. and that draws back to, again, another important aspect of using familiar gear. I know for a fact with my pack frame, I can pack all day. It rides, on the hips well. The shoulder straps distribute the weight well. I know that it's solid. I've packed moose with it before. I've packed bear with it.
I wish I would have brought the pack that I wanted to bring.
Yeah.
Just the whole time I'm like, man, I hike dog food in that thing all the time and load it down.
Oh yeah. I've thrown 100 pounds of dog food on mine and just walked into a bait. And that's, it's still 100 pounds. I'm not going to say it's easy, but it's
doable.
It does the job, and I've developed trust in that pack frame. And trying to use one that wasn't mine, oh man, that was mistake number, I don't know, probably 10 at that point. But either way, like that was, you bring your own gear. I'll put that
whatever quality, whatever. What's the term I'm looking for? It doesn't really matter if it's high-end equipment.
No.
If it suits you well for the task.
Yeah, it fits you well. It's something you trust. It's something you've used before. You're familiar with it. You know the adjustability. It fits you. And because, man, when you're hauling that much stuff, I mean, the fact that like on that Cabela's pack, those shoulder straps wouldn't cinch down because of the breakage that was taking place. Like trip number 1, maybe that wasn't the biggest deal in the world. Trip number 5, your shoulders are just done, and it's amazing how important that is. So, and that's one thing where you can stress test your gear too ahead of time before you go into the field for a season. Throw some 50-pound bags on it and see how it handles. Throw some awkward weight on there, see how it handles.
That's like my frame pack. It's for, I don't care what I put in it because I haul dog food in it. I haul meat in it. It gets bloody. I don't care. And I know it's going to do the job.
Yeah.
And I definitely won't let somebody talk me out of not bringing my own stuff next time.
Right. Yeah, no. But yeah, so we got back to camp and we realized we were in some trouble. This was, Tuesday night. So, and it was just it was an eye-opening experience for both of us. We have both packed many moose out of the woods, been involved in many a pack out. This was, I will definitively say, the toughest one I've ever experienced. It just, there were so many different factors here. And I've hauled moose out of some pretty bad areas. But so the other thing too, and I'll just jump into this, is once we got back to camp, it's important no matter what you're doing, to keep your morale high. I'm going to say that. And that's one area that I gotta say I don't brag about a lot of stuff, but you and I do a good job of that. We're in a bad situation. Just don't take yourself too seriously. Don't take the situation too seriously. Take it seriously enough that you're safe. But like, once you're back in camp and you're beat and you're tired, I mean, and that's where a benefit of this gentleman we were out there with, you know, he was joking right along with us.
We had him laughing.
Oh yeah,
and we intercepted him in pretty bad spirits. Right?
Oh yeah,
I mean, he was down and out, and naturally so. I mean, anybody. I think most guys in that situation would be, their morale would be pretty shot.
Right.
What was he? I think by the time him and I pulled out of there, he had been in there for 17 days.
Yeah. Yep. 2 of those nights before we showed up were solo, alone out there.
You remember I put music on my phone?
Yep.
And he was like, you know, and he's not I think it's okay to mention that these guys were out of staters.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And you know, I don't think they've really experienced this level of isolation on a hunt. I mean, that's pretty hard to achieve in a lot of places. And he had that. He's like, man, I haven't heard music, and he starts counting the days. You can see him counting. He's like, man, 17 days. And I'm like, that's pretty rough. And I'm sitting here like thinking about where I've been in the last 17 days. I'm like, I've been all the way on the other side of the state, come home, like hung out, been in my own bed. Right, you start thinking about these things like home cooked meals, right? Like all this stuff, and you start feeling for these guys, right?
Absolutely, man.
So the morale it's huge. It's, you know, we had them laughing, and
we're
goofballs anyway.
Oh yeah, I mean we couldn't take ourselves seriously if we wanted to.
Nah,
that's no fun, anyways. But yeah, so I mean, we got back to camp. We were having a good evening, you know, laughing, joking, having fun. Got a fire ripping and making mountain houses and swapping stories. You know, that's another thing is like when you keep it lighthearted, that also helps you kind of rejuvenate for the next day, kind of get a little more refreshed. And we got the tent set up and we made that work. You know, it was tight, but we made it happen. And the next day we just kind of went back at it. You know, we tried again. We tried to figure out a better path, you know, look in different directions and stuff. And I know I checked out another slough that was near the camp that we were like, oh, maybe we can get across that one. Swamped my waders trying to get across that.
Is it worth mentioning getting those quarters from the tree line?
Oh yeah,
back into camp.
That was the next
day.
Morning. That was the first thing the next morning. Go for it.
Yep.
You tell that portion.
That was about 300 yards.
Yeah.
And it took us 2 hours round trip.
Yep. Fighting that. No, we didn't even use the sled because it was so broken at that point.
It was done. Smoked.
Yeah.
We had ripped every eyelid out of that, every connection point. So that's when we got the frame packs. We were right back in the frame packs again.
Yep. Tried to make some repairs to them.
Yep.
And
we got a quarter each. And then it was just, it was back to the beat down.
Yeah, it was.
And that was still on the first set of quarters.
Yeah, first 2 quarters. Yeah. We went out right after breakfast and strapped those up and tried to get them home.
We were gung ho too.
Oh man,
we were like, we're doing this.
we thought we were so strong.
And that was it.
We thought we were so strong. We started so full of hope. No, well, and that's one thing with tussocks. I'll say this because part of that was when you're in a field situation in the wide open flats, and this is, I'm sure a lot of people already know this, but for anybody that doesn't, use waypoints, like physical, visual waypoints. I started developing some for where we were going. It's an identifiable tree with a unique squiggle on the top of it that, you know, it broke in 2 different places and healed, and you know now it's very unique looking tree compared to all the other ones.
When you were looking towards camp, you had I used those 2 peaks because our campsite was right down the center of those 2 peaks.
Exactly.
There was that high valley. And so I was like, okay, because we made the mistake of taking the long way at one point. We did like a C.
Right.
Like a big C.
Because then you don't realize and you're like, wait, am I even going towards camp? And you look and it's due straight to your left.
Well, and
you're like
tussocks and all that, the overgrowth is just high enough. Like if you get on one of those, the top of those tussocks, you can see like the tip top of the teepee. But then you drop back down in and you can't see camp. Like, the smoke was helpful.
Yeah.
The chimney smoke.
Yes, it was. And that's the other cool thing. So, I mean, this guy was injured, right? And couldn't pack, but I mean, he did a heck of a job keeping camp running. I mean, gear was dry, firewood was cut, tent was hot.
He was like, I'm a heck of a host.
Yeah.
He's awesome.
Yeah, he's a great guy. Oh, we had so much fun out there to an extent. With him, we had a lot of fun out there, but
made lifelong friends, that's for sure.
Yep. But yeah, so then that second day, you know, after struggling with those quarters in the morning, yeah, just tried to find a different route, tried to find any way to get stuff across that wasn't going to take an 8-hour round trip, you know, and we're trying to communicate to the outside world too. Hey, anyone available, we need manpower, we need gear.
Yeah.
You know, this is way more.
This isn't a rough pack out.
No.
This is.
Yeah, this is not like, oh, it's a long ways, or oh, these guys just didn't want to do it or anything. No, this is bad. And we can do it, but if we're going to do it in a timely fashion, we're going to need more guys and we're going to need better gear. And then the next morning was actually your last day there, if I remember correctly. Thursday.
We did one more day there.
Yeah. So because we packed the 2 quarters to the slough, or across the slough, overnighted, and then packed the 2 quarters the rest of the way, tried to attempt to find a better trail.
Yep.
No success there. Put in more miles, more, you know, more just in miles when you're wearing hip waders sucks. Just for anybody that hasn't tried that.
Yeah, that's not walking around in Crispies.
No.
It's a whole nother ballgame.
I'm amazed mine survived, to be honest with you. They're still waterproof. And they're just those were my cheap duck hunting ones.
Dude, all I remember is like I got Gabe let me borrow his like short notice, and he had already had thanks, Gabe, by the way. He had silicone to a bunch of leaks.
Yeah.
And he's like, they should be pretty tight. Give me the silicone tube. And I like threw it in the pocket. And like right when we started, my right boot just filled up on those waders. And I'm like,
I remember.
Of course.
First moment, first trap in.
Yep.
Wet feet.
Yep.
They've been well used though.
Yeah. Oh yeah, so, those things seen some action.
They've seen some killing.
I can only imagine.
Yeah. Oh, dude,
I was honored to wear those.
Felt like you became a better hunter just wearing the waders.
Oh man.
But yeah, so what ended up happening the next morning, we had been calling out saying we needed the more manpower, the more gear. You know, people trying to work logistics for us on the other end. And the gentleman that we were with, unbeknownst to us, had asthma. And so it's cold, it's wet, been raining. We pushed all of our sleeping gear to one side of this shelter. You know, we're all up trying to stay warm.
Exterior fire, internal fire.
Yeah, had an exterior fire going. And that, I will say this, that second night was like, I will look back on that night forever. I just want to recap on the second night real quick. When we had that fire, we put a big old fire on.
Yeah, that's where I just kept piling wood, and he was like, "How big are you gonna make that?" I'm like, "Big. We're gonna make it real big."
We got a lot of stuff to dry out, and we couldn't have the wood stove in the tent, the 3 of us, so we just made a roaring bonfire out there.
Yeah,
and it was great. We were goofing around with slow-mo on the iPhones and and just having a good time. He's I got videos of him just laughing, kicking stuff into the fire. I mean, that was where I'm going to look back on this trip and forget all the stuff that sucked. But
we just created our own atmosphere.
Oh yeah, it was great, man. And that's the thing, like, you know, even if you're in a situation that sucks, like at least if you're our kind of people, if you're the kind of person listening to this show because you're an outdoorsy guy or gal, and you just appreciate that wilderness experience. I mean, kicking the crap out of yourself during the day with work and then the sun goes down and you just make a nice fire. You get some food. You're just having fun. Like, man, I'm not going to lie. I was beat by the time we got done with this trip, but I felt rejuvenated in other ways.
Yeah.
Just spending the time out there, just being in God's country.
I got
man.
so many lessons out of this trip.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Yeah.
and there's something to be said for being like sort of just being put into a situation like that with a complete stranger
Mm-hmm.
that's in need of help and is low on the morale.
Yep.
And it sounds funny, not to sound cheesy, but you develop bonds very quickly.
Oh yeah.
And you either in those situations you either develop bonds really quickly or you want to like kill somebody, right? Like it's like
exactly.
people want to go like fisticuffs. And in this case, I mean, it was like you kind of there's not a lot to do. There's a lot of downtime.
A lot of time to talk.
And so there's a lot of time to sort of learn about each other and
tell backstories.
You're either going to make friends or you're going to be like, yep.
Mm-hmm. And I'm very happy
I never want to see you ever again kind of thing.
I'm very happy to say in this instance, I got the feeling we made 2 lifelong friends.
Yeah. Yeah. That's worth it alone.
Oh, yes. 100%.
And just good dudes too.
Oh, absolutely.
And even going into it, I have even told them, I'm like, when James asked me to help, I thought you guys were being sissies, you know? And now that I'm in this,
yeah,
right? And I told them, I'm like, I'm not going to lie. I had some prejudgment here on you guys and your situation, but like, and those guys were tough too.
Oh, yeah.
These guys weren't.
No, they were in shape. I mean,
the more I learned, I'm like, these dudes their personal lives, other things they had done. I'm like, these guys are very capable. This situation is just very unique.
Yes, it's unique. It was unexpected.
Yep.
And when you throw an injury in the mix, it doesn't, I mean, you could be the most fit guy in the world. If your leg doesn't work, you're not packing a moose out, like
an injury, respiratory issues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, good point. So to bring it back to that morning, so we found out, okay, this guy's got asthma. And the way we found that out was, again, cold, wet morning. It's raining. We're all bundled up in our layers and our rain gear and made the decision. We're going to put the wood stove back in the tent. We're going to push all our sleeping gear off to the side.
I unsheathed my inhaler too at one point, and that we found that commonality as well.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you too?
Yeah.
I'm sorry for you.
Yeah. Oh, we're suffering together here.
Yeah. Okay. Asthma buddies.
Yeah.
Sweet.
So we get that little wood stove going, and it was the mini version of the wood stove that it is. And so it was well used during this trip, and as such, had a lot of buildup.
A lot of creosote.
You can't always clean that out 100% in the field, and there were some leaky parts. Especially, and anybody who's used one of these tent stoves knows, I mean, when you open it up to stoke it, it's gonna fill that tent up with smoke. And so I was in there cranking that thing, trying to get it ripping, trying to get some dry heat going where we could step out of the rain and warm up. And that's the perk of having one of these tents, right? Is when you're socked in and it's raining and cold. I mean, you can stay inside, stay dry, stay warm.
Try the air out.
Yep. You can dry your socks out while it's raining outside. Like that's the benefit of these tents. And in this instance, because of the leaky nature of the wood stove, he was in there warming up and he goes to hit his inhaler and that's it. Last hit. And again, he's been out there for 17 days. He wasn't expecting to be out there for 17 days. He brought more than he thought he needed, but you're in a situation now. So now we can't use wood heat. We can't use exterior heat because it's pouring outside. And
it had snowed on us the night before
yes,
as well.
It had.
And we woke up to everything was frozen.
Yep. And it just turned into a medically dangerous situation. And so made the call. He ended up exiting the field, did a transfer possession paperwork with his friend, who was the other hunter out there at the time, who had been working logistics for us on the other end and coordinating, getting us new gear and finding manpower and stuff like that. I mean, phenomenal team effort. I will say that on that part. they definitely made the right call, because you can only communicate so much over inReach. When you're limited to 160 characters, and especially if you don't have the unlimited plan going into something like that, and you're limited to 25 messages a month or 40 messages a month, and then you're accruing charges for anything above that, it can be hard to communicate what you need.
Well, it's very intermittent too. Some of those weren't firing off in real time.
Mm-hmm.
And people
get
very aggravated with that.
And especially when you're involving like a transporter, because with the transporter, if you don't communicate something, and let's just say trips are being made, and that inReach message goes out and it doesn't reach him for 30, 45 minutes sometimes, because inReaches aren't perfect, right? Everybody should be aware of that. Like, it's a good device, but it's not perfect. And you could miss your trip. You could miss your chance at a pickup because he's already 45 minutes away.
You should have told me that 45 minutes ago.
Exactly.
I did.
Yeah. And then you get this aggression of like, well, like, why didn't you get my message? And sometimes it's nobody's fault. Sometimes it's just technology. But that's the reality of when you're in one of these situations in the wilderness. You don't know what's happening on the other end. You don't know if that message, just because it says it got sent on your end, how and when it's going to show up on the other end. I know, especially going inReach to inReach, I've had some issues in this state.
I have too.
Where it can take an hour and a half for that message to get through. And to the point, I was actually inReach to inReaching a friend. We were bear baiting in close quarters to each other, relative, same area. And we were like, yeah, if you shoot one, let me know, and he had inReached me and it didn't show up. I got the inReach message, bear down, and yeah, right on, buddy. I'm on my way, and I hadn't seen anything that night yet that I wanted to shoot. So I was like, okay, I'm going to get out of here, and rolled out. And by the time I rolled out, he was already, getting after it and done, basically. Cause it was like,
Bummer.
It took so long for that to, he's like, where were you? And, oh, that's the reality of inReaches in Alaska. So
I've tried mine back home, like when we've gone to visit family.
Yeah.
And it is instantaneous.
Mm-hmm.
Instantaneous. I mean, here and now.
Yep.
Here, everyone has a theory on this, but not so much.
Well, and just the northern band of satellites isn't what the central band is, And I mean, anybody who has a DirecTV dish in Alaska knows, I mean, that's not the satellite inReach using. I know that. You got to specify things like that on podcasts, but
yeah, he doesn't know what he's talking about.
Making an example here. You wouldn't believe some of the emails we get, man. But like, if you're on the wrong side of the hill, you can't have DirecTV in Alaska.
Yeah.
Like, you just can't. And there's more satellites for the inReach network than obviously there is for the DirecTV network as far as Alaska goes. But they're still not exactly directly above you. So depending on your terrain, depending on how much foliage is above you, how much, what kind of mountains are in your way, what side of the hill you're on, how much clouds are. I mean, there's so many different factors here. And that's why it's important to have a trauma kit and everything else to keep yourself alive. Don't just rely on the inReach as your sole means of getting out of a bad situation. That's not a good call.
I see a lot of people go light because they have an inReach.
Yep. I've known people that lightened their kit for emergency stuff because, I have an inReach now. And that's wonderful until you hit that SOS button and it goes to the wrong dispatcher, or they can't get to you for whatever weather reason. You can't.
And we've talked about this a ton too.
Yeah. Yep.
You have an issue, whatever. I think isn't that the main call center for that in like Texas or something?
I think so. Yeah. I think it's either Dallas or Houston maybe.
Yeah.
And then they have to figure out, okay, then where's the nearest thing to you? So the person that's communicating to the services is not from your area.
Yeah.
They might, Alaska. Okay. Well, he's in trouble in Alaska. Let's contact Juneau Coast Guard.
Yeah. You send a message out from Kodiak.
Yeah.
And they're like, don't worry, we contacted someone in Fairbanks.
Right.
You're like, no. There's Coast Guard here.
Exactly.
They're right here with me.
Yeah. And those stories have been told on the show too. It happens, man. So, and we had a little bit of that going on in this trip as well, with miscommunications and times and stuff like that, and frustrations, and, everybody having to figure it out and work together. But again, so this other hunter was out working logistics. doing a phenomenal job. And I mean, heck of a guy. And
he was almost running a call center.
He was, dude.
I
I mean, between family back home and
Yep.
people here and I mean, buying and borrowing any equipment he could, you know, and it's like his efforts saved this whole thing.
Yep.
I mean, we did a lot, but like it was not just a you and me thing. I do not want to make it seem like that by any means. There were a lot of other hands in the mix too, and it was a great thing to see people working together, you know, to really get this common cause of just helping each other. But yeah, so that morning he had used up the last of his asthma meds. I mean, you were having to hit your inhaler too. It was just turning into a situation where if for whatever reason we had a leaky stove again, or we had any kind of smoke and he had an issue,
I was going to be sharing with him there at some point.
Exactly.
We actually discussed that.
Yep. And so we made the decision, you know, he needed to exit the field. The other hunter came in. We're keeping names quiet just because we haven't talked to everybody about, you know, whether they want to be public or not. So, and you went with him to kind of help him out with the other side of things, with the managing everything through town and getting fixed, you know, getting things fixed up on the other end. And
going and getting him new shoes. His footwear was literally dissolving on his feet. Like
his soles fell off.
And like a really good, and that's another thing that these guys had some great gear.
Oh, super quality gear.
But it's, you know, you do your homework, and this place has this way about it where it just puts gear to the test.
Yes.
I mean,
this is the breaking ground.
His shoes were falling off of his feet, and they were not cheap. We'll just say that. It was a very good set of boots.
Yep.
So like taking him around, get his inhaler, get him squared away, get him in some clean clothes, some new shoes.
Yeah. And he needed that, man.
Yeah,
he needed that. So this is kind of where our stories, you know, part ways a little bit. So I stayed in the field, and two more gentlemen came out. So his original hunting partner that was familiar with what gear they had and familiar with the area, and I'm just going to say it, he was an absolute G out there. I mean, he pushed hard, man. And, so much respect for that man. And another gentleman came out, same thing, chipper attitude, just super, we're going to get this done. Right. And just keeping that morale high. Again, when you're suffering, keeping your morale high. I mean, you're not going to get out of the suffering. You might as well laugh about it. Right. So, but we made it back in there, and with new gear and 3 gentlemen, well, men at least, 2 gentlemen at least. I don't know if I can call myself that, but but yeah. So with 3 guys and new gear, better working
and some
gear,
good gear.
Yeah,
I definitely watched that. I watched that stuff come in.
Yeah,
and I was like, "What? Why didn't we get this the first go around?"
Yeah, but we shortened the path. You know, cut across a different part of the slough, where that one you and I had found, the refined path, the final version. Cut across the tussocks to the slough, to the trap line, cross more tussocks. And I think our first round trip was 3 hours, 4 hours maybe. Like half the time it took you and I on that first trip.
I remember you sending me an inReach message. You're like, we're getting stuff done in a third of the time.
And it was insane. And that's, anybody who's worked a job as a team knows that, you know, when you add one more guy to the crew, things can go twice as fast.
Splitting the load.
Like, yeah, more hands makes less work. And, you know, a lot of what we started doing was I had the rack pack on, and these guys would power team the sled.
Yep.
One guy would be out front on the lanyard pulling, and the other guy would be just steering and pulling over tussocks and stuff. And don't get me wrong, it was still grueling work. We were dead by the time we came back on that trip. But it went so much faster, and it did ultimately go so much smoother. The other factor, too, was you and I were ripping eyelets out and having to repair things and troubleshoot, redesign.
We weren't just roughing it. We were like re-engineering
when
on the fly.
When we had the right gear, that sled never broke once.
That thing was thick.
Oh,
I saw that come in. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, dude. It was the right tool for the job.
I heard you guys had like 3 mountain houses in a row on one return. Is that true?
So that day, that was so you left on Thursday.
Yeah,
we did one trip that day and got back. We pulled 2 more quarters out of the field, so now all 4 quarters are at the lake. And the other fact too is the benefit of having the guy that knew what gear was there and knew what all was available. We found their stash of food, so we had more food now for the group. We had more comfortable bedding situation. We had new game bags, and so we were able to take this meat and transfer it into new bags, clean everything out, get it air flowing through there, getting everything dried out. Really improved the situation as far as what we were seeing here. Got everything to camp hanging up there and went to bed Thursday night feeling like this actually might be possible now. And so Friday we woke up, had breakfast, and just got after it. And Friday we did 3 runs in and out. And again, and every single one took 3 hours, round trip. And so that's 9 hours of packing that day through tussocks, through swamp, the trap line was nice, hard packed ground, but you're still getting snagged on everything. It's still thick and narrow in places. Some technical driving on that sled for sure. But it's just at that point with the right manpower and the right gear, it turned into something that was just suck, Yeah. And once you embraced the suck and you realized this is possible, it's just going to hurt.
Yeah.
We just started going after it and, laughing every step of the way, taking appropriate breaks when you need to, not pushing yourself to when you're going to get hurt. Because the danger with tussocks, man, is not just that, you're going to break an ankle, getting across them dry. But when you're heading back and you've got 100 pounds on your back,
hyperextension's not out of the question.
Exactly.
I almost had a moment there.
You did. That first morning, trying to get him back to camp. Yeah. Yep. Or the second morning. Yeah. When you're stepping across ones and let's say for a stretch of 10, 20 yards, they're only 6 inches deep between each tussock. You don't know if that next one's going to be 4 feet deep or knee high, which is worse because then.
And then we had that.
Yeah. Then you're knee high. Now you're tipping forward, you're off balance, you got 100 pounds on your back. Yeah, hyperextension, all kinds of things can happen. It can become a dangerous situation. You got to be careful. Got to make sure you're not moving too tired. You're not moving too, don't get hurt. Don't get hurt just because you're pushing hard.
I got into a point there where I started bending my leg backwards, like bending my knee backwards, and then I had to like roll into it to go to like.
I thought you were done on that one, honestly.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna lie.
Well, funny enough is interesting enough. When I was out at work, this last time, I had a handful of tools and a chop saw stand on my shoulder. So I had a pretty good bit of weight, and I was stepping out of this building that we had built that didn't have steps yet.
Yeah.
And there's about a 3-foot step down, and I had stepped down. I think I told you this when we got to the field too. And rolled the heck out of my left ankle.
You did tell me that.
Yeah, and I mean bad. And I had good footwear on. I had stuff pretty cinched up, but I still ate it. Well, I had forgotten about that because that had gotten better when I did that little crazy contortion move there behind you when I was hauling that load. That went into my ankle and went into my knee, and I was like, oh yeah. I'm still not out of the woods yet with that ankle injury. Cause I had rolled my ankle really bad at work.
Yeah.
And just, toughed it out and it got better, but I was like, man, that kind of resurfaced. And then, I was like, this is rough.
Then you took the tumble out there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And that kind of all kicked back in. I actually, this morning when I came by, I was feeling that one again. I'm like, what is that? I'm like, oh yeah, I remember now. Why do I feel broken?
It's because of our lifestyle. It's because we don't know when to quit.
When did that happen?
But yeah, so Thursday or Friday morning, we did a single run, came back, it was about lunchtime, and we had to trade out one of our team members. So the gentleman that had come out with the hunting partner had to go. He had other work to do. He had responsibilities to attend to. And fortunately, on the ride in for his pickup, they were able to drop off another gentleman who was only there for literally one run as well. Just out of the good graces of his heart, he'd heard the situation, and he said, I can't spend the night, but I can go run a load with these guys.
I heard about him.
Yeah, and this guy was a tank.
He's lucky
bro.
he didn't get stuck out there.
Oh, this dude was a tank. I mean, he shows up and he's tatted up. He's like a police sergeant or something like that, and I mean, just absolutely gung ho.
The other guy told me there wasn't even any greeting. He said he handed him salt tablets, and he's like, "Take these."
Yeah, this guy, he shows up and he's again gung ho. And he just starts breaking out salt tablets. And he's like, I'm like, how rough do we look right now, man? That's the first thing. He's not, hello, how you doing? Like, yeah, you guys need some salt, man. And so we had completed our first run for the day. So we ate some lunch. And this guy's just wanting to get after it. He does not want to spend the night. He's been out in the woods as well, doing his own thing. And heard about the situation, wanted to help. God bless him. He's that's a fantastic thing. That's the attitude to have, right? And so, and he brought another sled. So now we got 2 sleds, a rack pack, still 3 guys.
As you guys are withering this situation, the gear's improving.
I know, exactly. And it works that way.
And you got salt tablets.
Yeah, no, we got salt tablets. So, and filtered Giardia water. So
yeah, you got to watch the beaver show while you enjoyed your
literally
morning drink.
A beaver swimming around 20 yards from me while I'm pumping water.
Dude, that was rowdy.
Yeah. Like, I hope this filter works.
Yeah.
But so he helps us out. We get back in there, and I loved, the thing I loved was that everyone that came to help when we first got to the moose felt the same way you and I did day one. Oh, that wasn't so bad. This is great.
What are you guys talking about?
And same thing. He gets there and he's like, oh man, that wasn't so bad. I'm like, yeah, no, the trip ends easy. He's like, oh yeah, we can get all this stuff. I'm like, oh no, no, we have at least 2 runs.
And that
here.
guy was a beast too, from what I heard.
Oh, he was
like,
an absolute beast.
like a phenom,
ultra marathon runner, like all kinds of stuff. Like guy was in shape. But even him, man, he was like cussing and swearing and just
I heard he was pretty
going
broken
through
at the end.
Going through the tussocks and everything. I was like, I'm just listening to him struggle, and I'm like, I'm not enjoying your pain, but this makes me feel better. Like the fact that you're struggling, makes me feel like I'm not so weak.
We're all human here.
Yeah, like
the equalizer.
I just love that everyone that came to help at the end of at least one trip was like, yeah, they're not lying. That's real.
This is genuinely unpleasant.
But he did great, man. We got so much gear in that run with multiple sleds and a pack rack and everything. And we all had packs on and dragging 2 sleds. So
I think it's worth noting too. I don't know that we've mentioned it.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't just moose meat.
I kind of briefly touched on it at the beginning.
Okay. I forgot about that.
There was
an abundance of gear out there.
Yeah.
It beyond just the animal itself.
Right. There were 2, probably 50 plus pound dry bags out there that were, gear that they had expected to just be able to boat up to where they were going.
Miscellaneous stuff.
You had your boats that we had to get out.
Mm-hmm.
Small motor, things like that. Like, all stuff that like had plan A gone according to plan, or gone off flawlessly, then I mean, it would have been fine. It would have been great. It actually would have been beneficial. Since we were on plan H, it was kind of a pain, but we got a ton of stuff out in that trip. And I mean, his help was so appreciated. He had absolutely zero responsibility to do that, or, nothing but the kindness of his heart and a good work ethic. So, his help was much appreciated. And then he had to go. And I mean, this guy, it was so cool because, like he said, he shows up, he's all gung ho. just wants to go. He's not real conversational, not real
I heard he was
talkative.
almost non-friendly initially.
Yeah, like almost like he was not impressed with us at all.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh,
Probably.
Yeah.
It seemed like everybody that showed up was disgusted with the first crew, at least initially, right?
Yes.
Like you and I, like,
Like,
oh, come on.
why are you guys complaining?
Yeah.
It's a moose pack.
Why
out.
am I
Like,
here?
Yeah, exactly. And by the time we got back with that load, I mean, this guy is just smiling. He's like accepted that, like, okay, this was tough, and like
Almost
he
like
starts-
respect for you guys.
Yeah, like we start swapping hunting stories, and he's telling us about his kids and their life plan, and he breaks out this cigar, starts smoking a cigar. And
He's not cadre anymore.
right, exactly. The brown hat came off. No, we're chit chatting. I think we had a little more food, and then so he stayed to help load it because we had gotten all the meat out at that point, and so he stayed to help load the meat and get it out of there, and we went back, and so he was heading home, and me and the other hunter are remaining there, and we just looked at each other. I'm like, it'd be nice to know we're done tonight. And I'm like, I asked him, oh no, it's actually right. I asked him, how spry do we feel? We just made 2 runs, and we got plenty of daylight to make a third, and he's like, it'd be really good to know we're done tonight. And we just, okay, we're making our 3rd run.
Smashed out.
Yep, let's do it. And so we throw our gear on, we grab the sleds and hike back in there. And that was the lightest load of the group of the bunch. And it was just the 2 of us, and we got in there. And just for additional sake, I mean, on those trips in, we found that deadhead. Man, that was awesome. We're finding
Should post a
so much
picture
cool
of that.
stuff. I think I might actually,
Yeah.
because it was pretty awesome. That was a huge moose, and just this deadhead in this area that you and I tried to cross the slough at one point, and it was way too deep and not realistic. But there was this monster moose head just hanging out in there
With a rack.
Yeah, with rack on, chewed up by wolves and squirrels and who knows what else. And
We should post one of those pictures with like height, and then let everyone judge what they think that
Right.
thing, because
Well, I've got that one picture of it. It was standing upright, right next to my foot, and I'm 78 inches tall, and it was, I would say, about to my nose.
yeah. Yes.
And that was with the chewed up part on the ground, so it was missing a decent chunk of that other paddle.
It was unreal.
Like missing a good chunk of that other paddle.
I've never seen a rack like that in real
man,
life.
it was insane.
And I mean, I've been to a lot of Cabela's,
Right. It was insane, man.
Dude, that thing was,
Yeah, that he was king for
and it
a
was
while.
just gnarly too.
Mm-hmm.
It looked like I bet a Grizz got that guy,
Oh,
or
something.
wolves, or like because of the way that this thing was all tangled.
Right.
I remember when I found that thing, I was like, dude, what the heck? I like found one end of it and like moved some grass, and I was like, oh, what?
Yeah.
Jay, look at this, dude.
Yeah.
You're like, yeah, I'll be there in a minute. I'm like, no, come here, man. This is insane. You guys, we got to dig this thing out of here.
Yep. And we did, and we spent some time, and enjoying that and kind of awing at it, and
Getting out of reality.
right, But I mean, I just gotta say that every single person that we were packing with out there was just chipper, happy. It was fun, It sucked. It was physically grueling work, but it was mentally, morale wise, it was good. It was a good mental space to be in. And so yeah, the other hunter and I went back. We grabbed up the last of the gear. We hike it out, and that night, man, it was just like a victory. We weren't leaving that night. We had one more night. Now with just 2 of us, we got the wood stove back in the teepee tent. We weren't asthmatic, so we were fine with a leaky wood stove for a little bit. I cut some bigger chunks of wood to keep it stoked overnight.
Yep.
And we got our sleeping bag set up, and got a nice bonfire ripping out there.
Almost like vacation at this point.
Yeah, and it's just you're kicking back, like mission accomplished. Like everything is to the extraction point.
Yep.
And And man, it just felt so good. We're sitting there, we're laughing, we're joking, we're telling stories, and we that was the night we ate three Mountain House apiece each.
That's what he told me when I took him to the airport. He's like, yeah, Jay and I sat and we just ate 3 Mountain Houses back to back. And I was like, you guys split the third one? He's like, no, we had 3 apiece. I was like,
each.
I was like, man, I can't imagine any situation I would eat 3 Mountain Houses.
And it was insane. So I boiled up some water.
The Giardia water.
The Giardia water. So I let it boil for like 10 minutes and mix up the first batch of Mountain Houses. And we're sitting there, we're eating, we're having fun. Like literally 10 minutes after the first one goes by. We're like, well, that was a nice appetizer. All right. Yeah, I need one more for the main course. Thinking, okay, 2 is max. I don't even think I've ever eaten 2 in a row before.
Dude.
And so we boil up some more water, get them cooking, and I get the wood stove cranking in the tent, get that warming up, and eat our second one. And I think I had the chili mac. It's the first time having the chili mac mountain. Oh, it's good stuff, dude. That was a new favorite for me. And got done with that one, and I get up and I walk around a little bit, and I'm like, is it bad if I want a third one? And he's like, dude, I was hoping you'd say something because I want one so bad. I'm like, all right, let's cook up some more water, bro. And we just cooked up some more water, got those things in the making. Had the mac and cheese. That was good stuff. And I think in total it was like, it had to have been pushing 75 grams of protein and whatever else is in those things. That's the only metric they give you on the face of it. I was looking at the pictures because I was taking pictures as we were going. And even after that, like we get done chit-chatting, we get done with that. I think I still ate one of those Cliff Bars before bed. I was like getting into my sleeping on the sleeping mat, and I'm like, man, I'm kind of snackish. So I started digging those things out. Oh, dude, I don't know how many calories I burned that day, but it was enough.
I need to ask it, and I need an honest answer. How'd the salt tablets do?
Oh, phenomenal!
Did you feel like you got some benefit from
I did.
that? Yeah,
I really did. Because I think, and I don't know how it all works, but because we were filtering all of our water.
Sure.
And in certain parts of the state, I won't filter water. In certain waterways, I kind of have an inherent trust for the natural filtration, or that there's not a lot of beaver activity there or anything like that. And I've drinking straight from streams, straight from creeks and whatnot, and never gotten sick doing that.
I've had some lucky go arounds. I had a big old. I just freaking chugged some water one time and looked up, and there goes a beaver.
Oh, man.
And I'm like, I thought about it, and I'm like, well, parts per million, right?
Right, yeah. The faster flowing the water is, the safer you are.
Like, I don't know what the deal is here, but
yeah,
I'm like, oh, we'll see what happens.
But like being on the kind of trip we were, being in the area that we were, didn't want to take any chances, and not that it's something that would necessarily kick in overnight, but still just don't want to take those chances because you never know.
I think it could.
It can. Depending on, again, I'm sure the severity of what you intake. So, but so I don't know. I've got to look into what filtering the water does to it. Because
like how much it depletes it of like minerals and different things.
Right. Because, does it make it, similar to like distilled water?
Right.
Now, it definitely wouldn't be to the extent that distilled water is, but if it's leaning more that direction than natural water, right? And so I can say definitively I did feel a difference. I don't know that I would have even done 3 runs that day without some sort of mineral intake to hydrate myself.
I wonder how much sodium those Mountain House offer. I'm curious too.
Yeah, I don't know.
I've been wanting to ask you about that, like how you felt and what, if you thought. Because that might be something worth carrying in the long run.
Mm-hmm. I would absolutely say it's worth carrying, especially if you're going to be doing something like a moose hunt or like a long sheep pack out where you're packing 100+ pack out, 20 miles over steep, rough terrain. you got to stay hydrated. You got to keep your body, and that's what that salt does is it forces that water to absorb into your system. Because in certain stress situations, your body can just flush all that out, and so you're taking in water and your body's not actually even using it.
Mm-hmm.
So the salt really helps your body use the water
Some
it's
retention.
getting, and you can hydrate more with even less water, and so it's a great thing to have on. It doesn't weigh anything, and especially if you're going on like a moose hunt, you're not super worried about weight. I mean, if you're flying out in a cub, obviously your pack needs to be 50 pounds or less, whatever the pilot's rules are. Sometimes they'll let you take some more gear. Sometimes they don't.
And even volume is a factor in that too.
Right. So, I mean, but there's a lot of things. These guys had a lot of cool stuff that I have not traditionally brought. Like those little towelette things, the little water activated towelettes. That's a game changer, bro.
I don't know if you noticed. He gave me a handful of those. And so I took that, I took those home and I got Ad again. I was like, hey, Addy, come check this out, dude.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got a bowl of water. He was so pumped on that. And then he wanted to keep doing it. Might be worth describing those.
It's like those little dinosaur tablets when you were a kid and it like melts away in the hot water and turns into a different animal or something like that.
Do you want to describe those a little bit?
Yeah. So, I mean, they're just, they almost look just like the salt tablets, which might get a little confusing for some, but
I got a story about this too. When we're
I know you almost ate one.
I was like, ooh, mints. I like this. This is perfect for my morale right now. Oh, mint
candy,
dude! Could you imagine just being parched and just throwing one of those things in your mouth, dude. Just yarding on it?
Goodness. Oh no! So they're really awesome. They look like I don't know. What do you think they are? Like half-inch tall, probably.
You know what it kind of reminds me of is like one of those like large Tums tablets,
right? Yeah, and it's like a half-inch by 1 inch, something
very
like that.
Similar.
Yeah, like it's super doable to just carry 50 of these things with you. They don't weigh anything, literally anything. And what I started doing was, I would have a little bit of water left over in my jet boil after making my mountain house. And I would put the lid down on the ground and I would put that little tablet there on the lid and pour all you need is a dribble.
Hardly anything.
Yeah, just a dribble, not a lot by any means. And it just absorbs that water and grows into this actual like moist towelette kind of thing. Like it's full size. It's just like a dude wipe. Yeah. And it's great. I mean, when you want to wipe your spoon down at the end of your meal.
I think that was designed after another personal care product that I won't mention.
I'm sure we appreciates that.
Yeah. No, kids love them too. I mean, I thought that was the coolest thing ever. I'm like, hey, can I get a couple of those? My kid will be stoked on that.
Oh, dude.
And he just wanted to keep doing it. We were doing it on the living room floor.
Nice.
Watching TV.
I'll tell you this, those things are living in my kit now. That was so useful for everything. I mean, cleaning dishes or cleaning, your own sloppy face off after getting done with a mountain house at the end of a grueling day of work. And that's cleaning your hands off. The other thing, like when you've been handling meat and stuff like that. Yeah. I mean, there's no soap on it. It's just a water rag. But like there was the one day I kind of had to make my own little makeshift soap, wilderness soap, and ended up with ashy hands and used those to get my hands all nice and done up again. And it really for the weight and space they take up. I mean, the usefulness is just amazing.
Those towels are really durable too.
Yeah, they are.
Because I was expecting it to be like a kitchen, like a paper towel.
Oh, right, yeah.
But it's actually got some like rigidity to it.
It does.
Like you can't even rip those things. I don't think you can anyway. I mean,
Not without some force,
dude. They are stout.
Yeah, yeah. That was a piece of kit that's gonna live with me for
this
from now
whole
on.
thing was a total eye opener for me.
Mm-hmm.
And even from a gear perspective, because I'm pretty minimalist.
Mm-hmm.
Like I mean that's. It's really hard to sell me on something modern and a new product. Now hanging out with Carson, he's always like, he's talking to me about like fabrics and all. And
the gearhead.
I love it too, dude. I mean, he's like, oh, I'm probably driving you nuts. I'm like, no, man. Like, dude, This,
Yeah.
you know how much time I'm saving not sitting on YouTube right now, like,
Uh-huh.
and not knowing what I'm taking in. But those guys had some really neat stuff.
Mhm.
It was cool to see how, like, and that's probably from a perspective of them going to a foreign place,
Yeah.
right? And doing their own research. And then you sort of like get this information secondhand. You think you're going to go out there and help somebody that doesn't know what they're doing, and you're picking, tips up off these guys.
Right.
I mean, I felt kind of dumb looking at some of the stuff these guys had. I was like, wow.
Well, and you put it beautifully. I mean, these guys have been, spending 2 years planning for this.
Yes.
Sole purpose. This is what we're doing. This is how it's going to go. This is what we need. I'm going to build up this gear kit over 2 years. Whereas, like, it for a lot of us, when you live here, I mean, you try to be as prepared as you can, but you're moose hunting around town, and you're moose hunting maybe up this.
Yeah, dude, you and I
this
go on a moose
place
hunt.
or-
Our wives aren't ordering stuff for us off Amazon.
Exactly. Right. Like, it's a little bit less, like, it's not less intense, but it's just, we get to do this next year. Or let's say we go on
And we have the luxury of like having a pretty concrete plan,
right.
or a boat
We're
with
familiar
weight
with the
capability.
area.
Yeah.
And let's say we go on an early moose hunt and doesn't succeed. Well, we have the benefit that we don't have a flight home. So we're just going to go on a late moose hunt because we can easily dedicate another week or, a 4-day weekend or something like that and go try the late season, try again.
Yeah.
Hunt evenings after work. We can, if we don't feel like we're going to have the time this time of year, well, guess what? There's a caribou season around the corner. There's a later moose season when after snow falls. There's deer down in the southern part of the state. Our opportunities aren't limited.
Right.
These guys,
It's like one shot, one kill for these guys on everything.
Yeah. And the level of comfort, I would say, in that camp, even, I mean, with the three of us in that tent, it was tight. I'm not going to say it wasn't. But like, just the little things like those towels.
Yeah.
Just made so much sense.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, and that's what I picked up from it, is like, you don't have to suffer. Like, I have a teepee now with a wood stove in it.
Yep.
And it's for that reason, because you can turn a really bad situation into a really enjoyable one. You can get out of the rain. You can dry off.
Well, and
things
if
like that.
you're not leaving,
Yeah.
and you can get comfortable, you may as well enjoy yourself.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. So I will not be shorting myself some of these things in my kit from now on. I can tell you that. I'm gonna take what I learned from this trip, and I'm gonna improve my experience out there. Because also the other thing, it's just like the reason I say, building a platform stand if you're allowed to in the area that you bait in, or having just a bigger tree stand with a better platform, better foot platform, better seating, maybe a back on it where you can kind of lean back a little bit and be more comfortable. The more comfortable you are, you're going to sit longer. You're going to want to be out there longer. It's the same thing with anything. If your camp is more comfortable, if you have more resources, if you have more ability, you're going to want to stay out longer.
I talk about this all the time with predator hunting.
Yeah, same thing there.
Like, like if you're wet right out of the gate and you're cold,
Mhm.
you're going to call it early.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you're an exceptional human being,
Yep.
unless you're, I mean, any of us,
Yeah.
you're going to call it early. And that's that little bit of time that you cut out. I mean,
Mhm.
staying longer could have been all the difference.
Well, and so much of suffering in the woods, and I mean suffering as in like, putting yourself in that situation intentionally. We love to suffer. But so much of being successful at that is winning the mental game, not letting yourself get into circles of anxiety where things aren't working and this isn't happening and blah, 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 and freaking out. And especially, I mean, and Carson talked about it on the last episode, the more time you have like downtime, the more time you're stuck in your tent, or you're socked in and can't go anywhere. You can't achieve what you're trying to achieve. You have a lot of time to think, and a lot of time to
negative patterns.
Yeah, that negative mindset, and those little comforts can sometimes be all it takes to just pull you out of that. Having
having a fire in your tent. That's awesome.
Well, like, good morale too. You could be like, oh, 4 hours just passed. And
Yeah.
we've just been talking about stupid stuff the whole time. And
Yep.
you're like, what?
Yep. You get a fire ripping, you get some food going,
Yep.
you're able to clean your hands. I mean, just stuff like that. Like I said, one of my biggest takeaways from this was just morale is everything, man. And having some comfortable camp gear makes a whole world of difference. I like those little folding seats. Not the bigger one, but the little itty bitty one. You can just throw that up against a tussock.
Oh yeah.
And it's just like the Stealthy Hunter rifle cover, but with a back on it. And that's all it is. And it's that's another pointer. When we pulled up out there, the main hunter, the guy that tagged the moose, he had a Weatherby rifle.
Yes, he
With a
did.
Stealthy Hunter rifle cover on it.
Yeah, I know. I was like, wait, what?
Yeah, I was like, hey, that's like my setup. I even took a picture of it. Maybe
That blew my mind.
If I get his
was like,
permission.
that is so cool.
Yeah, if I get his permission, maybe I'll post that. It's a beautiful rifle.
Yeah. Great people think alike.
Yeah, exactly. So where were we with the story here? We got a little sidetracked there. So Saturday morning was exit day. Now, remember when at the beginning of this episode when I said we don't go into the woods without being prepared to stay longer than we plan. I was planning on leaving like Wednesday or maybe Thursday morning. I ended up being there till midday Saturday. And that's fine because I had everything I needed. We had food, we had shelter, we had everything. And it was actually, honestly, when we were finally getting pulled out of there, I was actually a little sad. Like, excited to get home. I missed my wife. I missed my life. I had a lot of responsibilities that I had pushed off. Burned up all of my time from work. And, luckily my boss he was on the same page. When I called him and told him people are in trouble, there's meat that needs to be salvaged, there's gear that needs to be removed. They're asking for help.
People that need to be removed.
Yeah, people that need to be removed, like potential medical situation, like, can I go help? Can you guys afford to lose me for the week? And he's like, dude, just why are you even asking me? Get out there. Like, go get it done. And huge shout out to my manager for that. But yeah, it ended up being a much tougher thing than we anticipated getting ourselves into. It ended up being a lot longer than we ended up getting ourselves into. And I don't know a whole lot about what you guys had to deal with on the town side of things. I mean, as far as getting everything coordinated to leave. I know you showed up and you had the rack all wrapped for him already.
I just kind of did like all the running around I could do to kind of just make life easy on him after what he kind of endured there. So like I got that rack all wrapped up through a friend of ours.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually just going to go ahead and throw him out there. Tim Jensen. I hollered at Tim, and that's just Tim for you.
Tim's amazing.
Dude, that guy he's a rock star. Hollered at him, and he was relaxing when I bothered him. And he's like, yeah, let's do it. And I mean, that's Tim Jensen's dude. That guy's a phenomenal human being.
Yes, he is. Salt of the earth kind of guy.
Yep. And I explained it to Tim, and Tim almost had.
We need to bring him back for another episode.
Oh, dude, well, the cool thing about it,
I love chatting with that guy.
It's nice to see like people wanting to help people.
Yes,
because like I kind of mentioned it to him briefly, and I didn't have a lot of time to chat about it. But like once I kind of told him what the deal was, he's like, "Oh, I want to help," and
yes,
so, and that to wrap those up appropriately is a task.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's involved.
I learned that something too, because my stuff stays here at home. Right. I don't have to transport it. Right.
Yeah.
So like,
but it still has flesh on that skull cap. It still has, organic rotting
well, and you
material.
think about like wrapping that up and you're like, oh yeah, just wrap it up. No, like, and the job that he did, and he knew what the requirements were.
Phenomenal.
Dude. Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
that
thing didn't smell very pleasant.
Mm-hmm.
And like Tim handed me that thing, and I mean, you couldn't smell anything on there except packing tape and plastic. And anyway, shout out to Tim. But so we got
hanging dead beetling.
Yep. And Tim's always reliable.
Yeah.
Always. I mean, puts out an awesome product. I can't say enough good about that guy. He's right on, Tim. Anyway, and so yeah, we just kind of tied up the logistics end of things on that side. Like, these guys didn't really have contacts in town, and he took us to dinner, took me and my wife and my son to dinner, and that was, and it's crazy, like what we got out of this, just the camaraderie, and it was cool. My wife and him, they were chopping it up, and his wife's a nurse, my wife's a nurse, and so they had that whole. It was, and there was a lot of jokes, and we had a good dinner. And my son had fun, and that's what I love about our culture. Like that's what I love about what we do is you just meet like-minded people, and and now we have some winter plans with those people as well. And some plans to reconnect and like
lifelong friends.
And I've had some people do some exceptional things for me, help me out in jams, and it's nice to just be able to be available and do that for others. I mean, it really is.
Well, and I like the way you put that too, is it's our culture, and that should be the culture of all hunters, and I mean, really all people, but specifically, I mean, if you're part of the hunting culture, there's so many people that view, and for a lot of purposes it can be, but hunting as like a solo endeavor, and not to say that solo hunting is bad, but, at the end of the day, regardless of what your individual adventures look like, whether you enjoy going out solo or you enjoy going out with a group, whether you go out for the adventure.
A little bit of both.
Yeah, the adventure or the meet or whatever it is, at the end of the day, we are all part of the same community. And the willingness of so many people, like in this situation, to help these guys and to put out effort for these guys and to get this done was astounding. And it was so encouraging to me to see like the attitudes of just the willingness to help and the desire to help. But this guy that just flew in for one run, he's like, yep, I can help with one run. Like, that's huge.
Yep.
That without that one run, we wouldn't have even been
And he
out.
had already dealt with his own problems.
Right.
I don't know if you got any feedback on that.
Yeah.
But I mean, that dude.
Oh, that dude's a gangster.
Dude, that
bro.
dude is. Yeah, that's a whole nother
his
ballgame.
story. Oh,
dude. He endured like his, and that was solo too.
Yep.
And we had met his partner on the way out too, and his partner was awesome.
Oh yeah.
I mean, he was.
But that was the other thing.
He had your keys.
Yep.
And
he was working logistics.
Dude, he bought us coffee. Then me and him were talking like firearms and stuff, and he's like, "Oh, what are you packing?" And I'm like showing him my. And I showed him my pistol and let him check that out. And he's like, "Oh, cool, man." And yeah. And he's like, "Oh, you live here?" And we got to chatting, and it's one of those things. And obviously those things can be inconvenient, time wise, missing work, getting away from family, but there's just pluses in all those negatives too.
Yeah.
There's just, you meet people. I don't know, that it was really fun in a sense. It sucked.
Yeah.
But it was, I mean, yeah, a lot of good came out of that.
Yep.
I mean, even with like the products, some of the stuff that we got to see, because you and I were just like fidgeting with these guys' gear. Yeah. I'm like, what's that? What's that? You're looking at stuff and we're getting like gear reviews. How'd this thing work on the trip? Not so good. How is that thing? That thing is phenomenal. And you and I are just like, giving each other a look like, like we're
taking notes.
I mean, and then talking about these guys, where they're from. And I don't know, man. You almost couldn't buy that experience.
Oh yeah.
If you were a millionaire, you couldn't go buy that bad experience that had all this good in it, right? Like,
yeah.
I mean, it was, I don't know.
It was a really positive experience for me. It had its low points where of unsurety and you're maybe not feeling as prepared as you could be, or like those first 2 days, not having the right gear, not having the manpower. I mean, it was a lot, but to see how it all came about at the end, the meat all made it back to town. It all went to use. I got the other hunter back into town, back into Fairbanks, and he had just enough time take a shower, clean up, get packed, and head to the airport.
Yeah, I went and picked him up.
Yeah,
Yep.
literally, not even a no time for a power nap. Like you're just getting cleaned up, getting on the plane.
You know, and like not to pat ourselves on the back or anything, but it's we always talk about this like Carl talks about this a lot. You set somebody up and like you lay them out, you give them a layout like on a hunt or whatever, a fishing trip. Maxwell talks about this too. We got a lot of good buddies, but like seeing people through to the end, and like those guys, you know, there was some prejudgment on my part anyway. I'm kind of like, these guys are just being sissies, and I think when you see people put the effort in and they you know, their preparation was on point and they did everything they could, and they still had a hard time. You just want to see people through to the end when they're roughing it like that.
Right.
I don't know.
Well, and with these guys, I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, there are people that are sissies and will try to break the law or try to, you know, pass things by. But these guys were, I mean, amazing people. They did everything right that they could, and they preserved the meat. They preserved, you know, the gear, and all of us did, I should say.
Yeah.
You know, got everything back to town. And before, you know, the thing I appreciate about them too is they didn't have so much pride that they couldn't call for help. When they got in a situation where they realized we're in over our heads, this is going to take forever. It's just one guy with two good legs now. You know, like this meat's going to go bad. Everything's going to happen negatively to this experience.
Yep.
We need help. And they called, and I mean, the response team was amazing. And everybody that really put in that effort was just amazing. And I love seeing that for this cult. Like you put it, for the culture. That's how we should all act.
And you don't ask. You don't know if you don't ask. And you know, and a lot of people want to help. I mean, in a sense, we're all kind of seeking adventure.
Oh yeah,
right,
100%.
And it's like, I'll go check this out.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. When I got the call, I mean, like I wanted to help, and that was the main priority. But
I was really excited.
I get to go spend some time in the wilderness unexpectedly. Yeah, okay,
we were like, and if we would have asked for this time off for ourselves, we would have been told no.
Yeah, yep, would have been told no, or I wouldn't have even asked to begin with because I'm too busy.
The answer's
like,
no.
Yeah, yep. Like, yeah, whether my boss tells me no or my more important boss tells me no.
Yeah,
you know, like, but no, it was a great adventure. We had a good time with these people, and just it was truly a phenomenal experience for me, and I'm so happy that it ended up being a phenomenal experience for them too, because when things go south in the backcountry, it can easily turn from a good experience to a nightmare. And I'm glad that even though there were some hardships on this one, I mean, the end result was a good trip, a good memory, a good experience. Don't know if they'll ever try to come do that again, but one and done.
I tried to get those guys to come bear hunt, and they're like, our wives are probably not going to let us come back here.
We just got to give them like 6 months to settle down, and then they'll be ready again. We just got to let the dust settle a little bit. That's all.
It might be a little more than that.
Well, I have a feeling we'll be bear hunting for a long time, so whenever they're ready, they're more than welcome.
Yeah.
And you know, if you end up in a situation like these guys did, where you know maybe an injury comes about, or maybe there's just a situation where you can't preserve the meat, you can't preserve your gear, you can't preserve yourself, never be afraid to reach out for help, man. Never be so prideful that you get yourself a helicopter ride because you pushed too hard. You know, keep your safety and the safety of your harvest at the paramount, because you know the state will let you know when you goof up for sure. But beyond that, you know, we don't want anybody going out there and getting hurt. And no matter how prepared you are, there's always going to be factors you can't account for. How good you handle that is Well, that depends on your gear and yourself, your mentality, your physical fitness, all kinds of stuff. But sometimes, I mean, Alaska's just going to throw stuff at you that you cannot foresee, and you've got to be able to adapt to overcome. And if you can't, try to call for help. Don't get yourself killed. Alaska kills
too,
a lot of people.
if you're admitting that you're in a bad situation and and you gotta throw the towel in, like, and this could sound bad, but throw the towel in and take the fine, because your life's not worth it.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's much better to pay the state some money than be dead.
Yep.
Yeah,
and take it on the chin and and walk away with your health. And
I believe there are exceptions for if you end up getting helicoptered out for an injury or something like that, where it's like, okay, this is a situation beyond your control. But if it's not to that point yet, you are at risk. I mean, like, if you're still able to not be helicoptered out, if it's not that serious, but you just can't, like in this case, just couldn't make that pack out, I mean, you are at risk. You're at risk of the law. And these guys' willingness to call for help and everybody's willingness to respond is the reason this story ended well. And I just want to give a huge shout out to everybody involved that really helped out and really had a heart for these guys. And to these two guys as well. They're phenomenal human beings. I'm excited to see them again. I'm excited to hang out with them again. We're talking to them on the phone and coordinating some gear, shipping and stuff like that. It's so, every time I talk to these guys, it's so much fun. So.
We've had some good text exchange. I've been pretty busy since then, and I've had some good, some out loud laughs. Yeah.
They're funny guys.
Yep.
And just going through something like that with somebody. I mean, when the personalities match, I mean, it builds a bond that I think
in a very short period of time.
Very short period of time. And the gratitude these guys show too. I mean, they're oh, come down, we'll do this adventure together. We're not going to do anything that crazy, but we're going to do, come down. You're going to have a great time. We got you.
Yeah, let's do something crazy.
Yeah. We live for crazy, bro. This is what we do.
I go broke for crazy.
Why do you think we live here? Almost died on the way to a New Year's party. That's the kind of crazy we live for in Alaska.
I love the people. They're like, yeah, if everything falls apart, I'll start hunting if I need to. I'm like, you know how much money I spend to come home empty-handed all the time? Get out, be quiet, get out of here. God, please, come on.
Yeah, you better start now, because Goodness gracious. But yeah, so if you were wondering why we missed an episode last week, that's why. So that's the explanation. That's the story. It's pretty much all there is to it. We had a great time. Like I said, we met some great people. Wore myself thin. I know you wore yourself thin, physically, emotionally, mentally, but kept morale high. We were prepared. That's a huge factor there. Is just being prepared for the unknown as best you can. Obviously, we had to get some gear flown in for the pack out, but as far as camp goes, as far as staying warm, staying dry. One of my first texts to Carson back when I got here was the exchange we had on the last episode about me wanting to get a quilt versus my mummy bag. I busted the zipper on my mummy bag the last night I was out there.
Oh yeah.
So it was the two of us. We were in the teepee, and when there's two, you have the wood stove in the middle. And so he had his side, I had my side. If he has to get up and pee, he has his own door. If I have to get up and pee, I have my own door. But I was pretty much keeping the wood fire stoked. And so it was a small stove. So every couple of hours, you've got to throw another big log in there.
You got to do maintenance,
move things around, and it's. I don't know. I wasn't sleeping that deeply out there, so when it would start to get a little chilly, I'd wake up and oh yep, stoke it up, cool. Well, there was one, it was like, I don't know, 3 a.m. or something like that, and I was trying to get my arms out to stoke the fire, and zipper was stuck, and I just Supermaned my way out of there, dude. Just boom, just busted the zipper on it, and I was half asleep and not thinking about the quality of the gear that I was destroying at the time. But luckily, it's not a very expensive mummy bag. It's it's an affordable version, but it was the largest one they had. It had fit me well up to this point, but I don't like mummy bags, and so
I can't stand them.
the first thing I texted Carson when I got back into town, I'm like, well, it's official. I'm buying a quilt. So yeah, I'll have that adventure to talk about soon with how many of those I end up buying before I find one I like. But
there's a lot of things I got out of this.
mhm.
It's like I got the gun, I got the scope, I got this, that. But it's the smaller things too.
Yeah.
It's those lightweight layers, packable clothing, and
Yo, yeah.
definitely, and I've had a lot of resistance to that, but I've become more open to that. We'll say forcefully open to that.
Yeah.
In recent days.
I'll
take that puffy jacket now.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've been slowly adapting my kit to that lighter, more what you would almost call sheep hunting gear, but realizing that has its benefits in all forms of hunting. Whether you're
more lightweight,
whether you're on a boat or a wheeler, because on a wheeler and in a boat, depending on the boat you're in, you've got limited cargo space. You've only got the front rack and the rear rack on a wheeler. You've only got so much space.
You
in your
might
boat.
not even be. It's like, and that's the whole thing I've been running into lately with a lot of things is like you might not be even weight limited, but you might be space limited. It's your volume,
right? Well, and that's where I had my 90-liter dry bag, and that thing was stuffed. I mean, I had maybe two rolls on the top of it before I had to clip it, and it didn't weigh nothing. It weighed like 34 pounds. It was definitely light enough to go in the plane. I could have thrown that thing in a cub, but it's bulky.
Yep.
I mean, that's a 90-liter tube with my gear in it, and a lot of those pieces, if I had lighter, different layers, will compress down a little bit better, store a little bit better. So there is value in that for sure. 100%.
It's like that duffel bag I got, that dry bag.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you look at that thing, you're like, whoa, where are going to put that? And you're like, it looks like it weighs 65 pounds, and you pick it up, and it's like 15 pounds.
Exactly.
Well, and it takes up a lot of space.
Well, and that's another benefit to those quilts. So the one I'm looking at getting, it's a 10 degree, and it's got a full system that goes with it. I'll talk about it more on a future episode, maybe once I actually have it and can review it. But it's got a full system that clips together with your kit and your sleeping mat and everything, so it all becomes one system. And the whole thing, minus the mat, of course, the actual inflatable, but the whole rest of the system fits in like a 15-liter bag, like compressible dry bag.
That's pretty good.
That's pretty small, dude. I mean, it's not the smallest thing in the world, but that's pretty packable. So, and for a 10-degree bag, that's pretty good.
What do those quilts go down to from your research?
As far as temperature?
Yeah.
There's ones that make 0. There are a few companies that make 0 degrees. But I haven't seen a whole lot of options that dive into like the negatives. Like, you can get like a -20 mummy bag, -40. I think anything below that, you're not really looking at a mummy bag as much as you are like a full-blown monster
I
bag.
love that sleeping bag that I have.
Oh, it's, yeah.
Dude, I love
that thing. Looks comfy.
It is insane.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And and that's the other thing. Like if you're running with like a semi-rectangular bag, you can roll around in that a little bit more easy, and stuff like that. It's not a mummy bag where it's literally contoured to your body, and when you try to roll over your pillow or whatever, your hoodie that's stuffed under your neck, it's all coming undone, and you wake up at 3 a.m. with a cricked neck and everything. But
that one I have is not packable by any means.
No, that thing's not.
I mean,
yeah.
But dude, you can roll around in that thing. I mean, so I was going to bed at night when we were out there, and I was just shoving like my pants down in the bottom of that thing, like down to the feet,
yep.
And like all my headlamp and like just literally just emptying everything out in that thing and just crashing out.
Yeah.
Rolling around on everything in there.
Yep.
But that's not practical.
No.
But I mean, for the stuff I do, it's perfect.
Yes. Yeah. And it's worked to this point.
I always got a boat to stuff that thing in, or a 4-wheeler. And
yep.
there's
There's something to be said for getting a nice, big, thick, comfy
That is
sleeping
true.
bag after
There's-
a cold day.
Two things that really make a nice trip is, comfort for your mentality. Being able to keep a good morale. Being able to have a good night's sleep is huge for that. When you can sleep through the night and wake up rested, like in this instance, what we're doing.
You have to.
Beating the crud out of ourselves, dude, and just you have a window to recover, and then you're doing it again the next day, and then you're doing it again the next day, and that. When you can actually sleep through the night and you wake up, that's huge. And that's where, like, for me, mommy bags have just fallen off because I'm always waking up uncomfortable. I'm always waking up undone, and everybody might think I'm just sounding whiny, but that's whatever. I don't.
Oh well, that's where I'm at. I
Yeah.
mean, and what's crazy, dude, is like it. I mean, we've talked about this too. Everything just goes so much better when you're well rested.
Yep.
And what's the point? What are we trying to do? What are we testing for here?
Exactly.
What are we trying to get? What are we doing here?
Right.
Like,
I suffer more than you.
I already have all the
Yep.
t-shirts in the back of my closet and hats. Like, I'm
Exactly.
good, dude. Like,
Yeah, I think I've hit that point in life too, where it's just like, yep. I want to go still do the things, but I'm willing to make some adjustments to make it a little more comfortable. So hopefully with the the new tent set up, and I get a new sleeping setup and everything, it'll be real nice.
heck yeah.
Real nice. So, but yeah, pretty much all I've got on what happened that week. That's pretty much sums it all up. So
Might not be the most climactic story, but that's what we're up to.
Yep. I mean, just a wild time out in the wilderness of just packing animals and gear over terrain that was not meant for that, and helping folks in need, and everything had a nice happy outcome at the end. And
Yeah, I would buy that situation.
Yeah.
Like
100%.
If it had a price and I could afford it. And like it's hard to put emphasis on things like this too. Like it just yeah.
No, I had a
I'd
good
do
time.
it again.
Yep. I would too. No, and that's important. And I hope anybody listening to this, I mean, if you end up being the person that gets that call, like I told these guys, I wasn't sure if I could do it when I got the call, but I told them, if I can't, I will find someone who can.
Yep.
That I hope anybody listening, that's your attitude, because we need to be able to respond to these things, because not every situation requires a helicopter. This one didn't, but it was headed in that direction.
Yeah.
Like, and nobody wants that outcome for somebody.
Yeah.
So, if you can help somebody avoid that, help them, stay within legality for their harvest, and help them just walk away with a good experience, whether they're resident, non-resident, doesn't matter. We're all members of the same community, the hunting community. So, and just be prepared and have fun. So that's pretty much all I have. You have anything else you want to say to the folks?
Nope.
All
Just
right.
Be safe. Over prepare.
Yeah.
If you're not on a sheep hunt, bring everything you can bring.
Exactly. Bring everything the pilot will let you bring.
Well, that's another story.
That's for another time.
Good Lord.
All right, folks. Well, thanks for listening in. Hopefully you enjoyed our story on Chris and I's adventure. If you have any questions or you have any comments on this episode, feel free to reach out. We have the contact button on the homepage of the website, thenorthernhunter.com. We've also got our social medias. If you go to the Northern Hunter on either Instagram or Facebook, you can reach us there. We always try to respond as fast as we can. Feel free to hit up the shop page on the website too. Really appreciate when people buy some merch and send us pictures. We've got a bunch. And with permission, we're even going to start posting some. I've got a couple people has taken some really cool pictures with some Northern Hunter logos on. So always love seeing that. Really appreciate you guys that have believed in what we're doing and want to rock the logo. It's pretty neat to see. Got a list of companies too that love what we're doing and want to help us out. We've got the partners page on the website. If you go there, you can find discount codes for a lot of those companies. It's all great outdoor gear. It's going to help you get out there, be prepared for situations like this. Like we pointed out, I mean, this guy, he had a Stealthy Hunter rifle cover on his rifle. He had, I had my my trauma kit with me, my little lightweight one. That
that really made me do a double take. I looked down. I'm like, what do you get? What are you shooting? I look over. I'm like, you bring that, James?
Yeah. I didn't know you brought your rifle.
You were like, what you bring? Like, we ain't out here hunting.
Nope. Yep. Great piece of gear. And if you go to the website, we've got a discount code. You can go get one at a discount, and helps us make more content and do more with this channel and this outreach. So, but yeah, again, thanks for listening. And until next week, get out there, get after it. And good luck. We'll see you there.